Hello. And we're back, team.
Hello world. We have new headsets.
We are Sasha and the cat. Back at ya. Right
Leveling
here.
up.
Leveling up with us. Yes, Sasha and I have new headsets courtesy of Sasha Jade here. I'm still getting used to where am I looking?
I know.
I see 4 of myself. It's honestly kind of hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm not supposed to be looking at any of those. I'm supposed to be looking at
Right.
this.
Yes.
But I kind of love these headsets. I wonder.
I know. I thought they would look a little too weird, but they're not too bad.
Let us know what you think. I kind of think this old school vibe is interesting. Or maybe we're serious gamers.
Yes, that could be another possibility.
Chris is like air traffic controller.
Oh yeah.
So today we bring you welcome to our community of side hustlers, main hustlers, entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call yourselves. But if you're sitting at home today and you're like, I need some friends, we're here.
We got you.
But today we're on a more serious note. So we have our little blazers on that we probably dug out of the closet, like the back of the closet, because we haven't gone anywhere in forever.
Yeah.
And we're here to speak lawyer speak. Just kidding. We don't know anything about the law except for the 5 things that we're about to talk about.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about, a few episodes ago we talked about owning your business in terms of confidence, and we thought today we should actually talk about the legalities of owning your business, because I feel like that's
Yeah, we talk a lot about entrepreneurial spirit things, but not too much on the legalities, because who likes that part? But it's very important, obviously.
Yes, I think it's
should I start with
sorry,
the article?
Yes, so Sasha's going to share an article because that'll kind of get us into it. But we're just going to give you like a quick snapshot of what to do to get your business started, things to think about during the year, and annually what you should be thinking about, and then maybe a couple of tips going forward. So Sasha, go for it.
Let me also mute this really quick. Okay, that was annoying. Too many tabs. Do you also have a lot of tabs open all the time? So bad.
Definitely.
Okay, so this is just a quick article I found, Business News Daily. It goes into starting an LLC, which is what me and Kat kind of decided where it's probably the most advisable thing to start when you're starting a business. Mostly because it's the simplest, but also protects you. Below an LLC is just like a sole proprietorship, and that's where you are your business. But that way, like if anything happens legally, you're held responsible. But with an LLC, it puts it onto the business, so it won't actually come back to you personally, which is helpful. I think that's like the main reason people do that. But it's an LLC is limited liability company, and I won't get into the specifics of this because I will just share the link instead. Or maybe I'll have Kat do that.
And we'll be sharing these links. I can share the link.
Okay, cool.
And we'll be sharing all these links in our Facebook group as well.
Yeah.
Oh. Wait, no, I can't.
As like a comment.
I can.
Sorry guys, we're still learning the whole like back end of YouTube world, as you can tell. So I'll do that later, but we'll share it on our screen for now.
I get
Personal asset protection. So that's what I was talking about, where like it's not personal, it's just onto your business if something wrong happens. Taxes, simplicity, flexibility, credibility, blah, blah, blah. Again, if you Google anything about LLCs, every website will tell you to start one and not the other ones. So unless you're having some like high level business and you're trying to scale and you already have a team and all this stuff, you're probably not watching this. So number one is to start with your state. So every state has different rules and requirements and things that you're going to need to start the LLC or kind of just start your business. So always start there. Me and Kat just noticed there was already a difference in what we had written down because Ohio and Tennessee are different when it comes to renewing your business. So just definitely focus here first. And then obviously naming your LLC, and that's kind of the reason people register for an LLC, is that way you have that name like owned by you. No one else can take that name. And it's also important, like if you've already come up with a name, but someone else already took it, you got to find something else. So always check first if the name's available and then go ahead and register it through there.
Wait, can we backtrack a little bit?
Yeah.
Since we're going through, I didn't realize the whole article was like our entire
Well, I think you mentioned other stuff that it didn't have. I don't know.
Well, just with the LLC stuff, sorry, I'm trying to, how do I switch this back? And I can't. Okay, well, it's just your face, by the way. But wait, are you able to stop sharing for a second and then easily go back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, okay, perfect. Oh, there you go. Okay, so with, I think because I know we wanted to talk about Etsy too, but I think just to go, since we're already going through it, but, so she was saying that the sole proprietorship, the biggest thing for someone starting a business is to think of it as you are not your business, which throughout the business, I think people, we talk a lot about how, like, because of the passion, you feel so much for your baby. But especially when it comes to the legal stuff, you really need to be like, I am not my business, which is the main reason we don't recommend a sole proprietorship. Because let's say things go sour with your business and you're, $30,000 in debt. The government can put a lien on your house, which means they can put a hold on your house or on your assets, on your personal assets until you pay that back. But if you're an LLC and you file for bankruptcy, then it's a separate thing. So I think it's more about when you have issues. So I think it's important to just really separate yourself from the business from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's why we choose the LLC, because it's the simplest form of separating yourself. Because technically sole proprietorship is the simplest business structure, which you would want to go for because you're starting a business and you're like, I'm just one person. But it's not.
Yeah, you're like held personally, liable, which is the issue with it. But then, like, I think beyond LLC, there's like S Corp and C Corp. I don't know. There's a bunch of other ones.
Right, which I think
those are like
more
larger scale and like bigger teams and kind of just more in depth. Which you're probably not watching this if you're there.
Right, exactly. If you're at that point, and which we'll get to the end of like consulting people, if you're at that point, sorry, we can't help you. We're not there either. So.
Yeah, you're already ahead of us. So,
well, we just know.
But I think this is helpful for, like you mentioned, Etsy, or people that are kind of just have like a small business or project or idea that they're kind of like at that next step with, which is what we're all about with leveling up. So, and yeah, I mean, we can go through these as just like bullet points, but then go more in depth with them too. Registered agent, me and Kat also briefly talked about before this, but it's basically just you whenever you register for an LLC. If you do have a partner or someone else that you want responsible for this, then you would go ahead and put their information in then. But when I did mine, it was just me. And I think Kat was the same way. And that's fine. File with the state, obviously. That's actually really important. I don't know. Yeah, you have to file with your own state.
So basically, sorry, can you go back?
Yeah.
Oh, well, actually finish your article. We'll talk about that as we go.
Yeah, and then determine management structure. Again, with LLCs, you can kind of get away with not being super into this part. So member manage, meaning that there's a small number of LLC members who are all involved in the day-to-day running of the company, or manager manage, where members do not wish to be involved in managerial matters. Again, you can just make it yourself, and that's fine. Creating an LLC operating agreement.
I would skip that.
Yeah. EIN. This is super important.
Yeah.
It's basically like the social security number of your baby, of your
business baby.
brainchild. Yeah, your business. But you'll use it a lot for tax documents and getting funding or loans or anything. You have to know this number. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to find it because I didn't have it easily accessible. Mm-hmm. So it's important to just have.
I would almost memorize it.
Yeah.
You use it so much.
File to do business in other states. I don't know about that.
That is, so when I moved, I could have kept my business in Florida, but also file in Tennessee. But I think for new small business owners, unless you're getting to that point, just dissolve the one in the previous state and just do the new one.
Yeah, you have to like file a dissolution, I think, or something. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's just dissolve. I forget the term, but there's like different options too whenever you're doing that. But I think the best one is to just dissolve the business in the other state. And then once you close it, you can then open it in the other state. I think if you had facilities in 2 states, then that's when this would apply. But if you're just transferring completely, then it's best to just start over new in your new state. And then I think from here, you can probably pick up Kat, because this is just more on kind of what we were talking about. And
we'll be putting this in the chat and in our Facebook group so you can actually read it in detail. But we wanted to, can you switch back to, we wanted to kind of just go over the basics. So like as if you're like, I want to crochet and I want to sell it on a platform. Or we're going to do 2 people, Crochet Lady, and we're going to do consulting services Tom.
I think we should start with Crochet Lady and kind of mention the whole Etsy avenue.
So basically we're doing a product versus a service. But they kind of go along together, but you'll see. So again, state requirements.
Number one.
So we just noticed, which we'll go into a little bit later, that Sasha and I have some different rules. And I was talking about something, and she was like, I don't have to do that. And I was like, what are you talking about? So even between Tennessee and Ohio, some differences there. We'll go into that. So I just wanted to note, like for Crochet Lady starting her Etsy shop, for example, she might just want to be, creating her shop. She's like, oh, create shop, because it's so easy. They make it so easy, Etsy, right? And they're like, oh, create shop. Put your name, crochet today. And, name is available. Great. You continue your business, but you never filed an LLC. What happened, Sasha?
What happened? Me?
No, I mean, like, what happens to Crochet Lady?
Crochet Lady's fine, because she will just get a 1099 to file her taxes at the end of the year. So legally, she's in the clear. She didn't do anything wrong. But because she didn't file an LLC, she could still have something happen to her personally, right? Kind of like a sole proprietorship would work.
Yes. So basically, let's say she's Crochet Lady. She's had 1,000 sales. And you know what? She's like, I need to do something. I need to grow, right? Or I need to make sure this is mine. And she's like, you know what? Let me go file my LLC 1,000 sales later. And Crochet Lady's not available. Actually, not that it's not available, because if it's not available, there is something else you could do, which you can file under a different legal name and then do business as Crochet Lady. But if there's a Crochet Lady doing the same thing in the same state that she is doing, she cannot work under Crochet Lady. I'm sure there's like some legal thing, like you can go to court and be like, I started this first, but because there was no LLC registered, technically New Lady gets to keep.
It like didn't exist. Yeah,
sorry. Gets to keep.
It didn't fully exist.
Right.
I want to mention too, because when I did Root Essence, I think my train of thought was just, okay, Google it. Is there a website that's already called Root Essence Jewelry Designs or whatever? And there wasn't. So I was like, oh, okay, there's a chance. Or if there was, but it wasn't like specific enough, then I was like, okay, I can still go with this name for Etsy. So there are ways that you feel like, okay, no one else has this name, I should just go ahead and do it. But it's better to just go the legal route, file the LLC, secure the name, because then it actually exists. And that way, if you did want to scale up, or if you did want to start selling stuff from like a personal website and not through Etsy anymore, because Etsy does take fees, there are some like downsides to it. You wouldn't have to be like, oh no, I have to like rebrand and rename everything because I don't have the option to take the same name. So it is important. Kat registered an LLC when she started her Etsy, or probably along the lines of that, and I didn't. So we kind of have both experiences with that. And I think because I wasn't planning to scale up with mine, it was okay. But I do think it's better to just do the LLC. It's not even that expensive to do it. So it's worth it. And that way you also aren't wasting your time with like branding and coming up with all the ideas related to your business name. And then it's like not even available.
Right. And then you got to like basically start over, which, I mean, not start over. That's just more work. To me, it's easy to just go online, file something, and that's it. It's yours, rather than now a year later and you're like, oh, I couldn't do it. Now I have to change this. Oh, I already sent out business cards. I just bought 500 business cards. Who buys business cards anymore? But, you know. So when it comes to registering your business name,
important.
It is by state. So, for example, Florida has Sunbiz. Tennessee has its own. I forgot what it's called, but I'm sure Ohio has their own too. But you have to register, like she said, by state. So, it is only valid in that state unless, you know, as you go through it and you say there's other locations or whatever it is. So I think that's important. It doesn't cost that much. Florida was like $170 or something. I don't know, something like that. But Tennessee was freaking like $300. I was like, is this small biz county or what?
I know. Let me share. I'm just going to show what it looks like for Ohio. So there's like a bunch of websites that will pop up whenever you search this. All these, but obviously look for the one that's a government-based website and link to your state, because that's probably the most legit. And there's just so much information. I think with Ohio, I had to create an account first, and then through my own account portal, I had to register the business. But that's kind of nice because you have like a dashboard you can go to and just kind of like get information and get updates and stuff. But yeah, so you see there's all of these forms and stuff. It looks complicated. It's really not. Here's start a business. Most of the states, I think, have it just very straightforward and how you would go about doing this, because they want you to help make money in their state. Yeah. So I won't get into the details of this, but again, just look for a government-based website related to your state, and then just follow whatever guides they have available. Yeah, it's super straightforward.
You should be able to file online.
Yes, you should be able to file online, especially in today's day of COVID. Oh, look how cute. Haha.
That's a cute little thing.
Vendor's license. Yeah. And again, there's so many specifics to your type of business. So it's important to know the type of business that you have, whether it's product-based, service-based, and also just like what industry it's in. So mine for Botana Bites was technically baked goods. So there were certain things that came with that. Like, are you able to sell at markets or at stores, or what kind of license do you need to sell, period? Or if I wanted to do a food truck, that would require different licenses and stuff. So there's a lot more to this than what we're saying, but this is just kind of the basics of starting a business.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I think the websites are pretty straightforward, even though you look at that packet and you're probably like, what is all of this? But if you just literally go to the applications usually will reflect that packet, but you actually fill it in as you go, I think.
Yeah.
So, and then you'll see, because you haven't started anything, it should not be difficult. Meaning, you don't have sales to report or employees to report. It's just, I am me. This is the address. Blah, blah, blah. So with registering your business name, which is pretty straightforward, at the end, it'll probably either ask if you need a tax ID, which is the EIN number Sasha was mentioning earlier, or the federal EIN. So that is probably one of the most important things. Now, at the end, I don't know if this is like this with Ohio, but it was like this with Florida and Tennessee. But when you finish filing in the beginning, you're like, I registered my business. It's like, would you like this certificate? Would you like this certificate? Would you like this certificate? And it's like, you need this certificate. Then you'll even get stuff in your mail like, file now, certificate.
Yeah.
You don't need any of that unless you know you need it. But you probably would have filed for it when you needed to.
Yeah.
Except for this. You do need this. So filter through all that junk and make sure you get your EIN and, again, memorize it. Or keep it handy.
And I mean, there are like, you could do like a trademark or something else to kind of legitimize the business that you have. Yeah, there you go. But that's all, again, up to you. None of it's required. It's just how well protected you want your brand or your product to be.
Yes.
A
So like
domain, which was on that card. I mean, domain is like essential. You need a website domain. But the trademark thing, I remember people asked if I did that with Botana Bites or if I wanted to. And it's probably best if I did, but it's just an extra thing or extra financial thing. And I think in the beginning when you're trying to just save money and personally fuel the business, then I just didn't think it was worth it. But
can I clarify a little bit? So in music business, my major in college, rip, we talked a lot about, sorry, I need to get close because then it gets blurry. We talked a lot about copyright versus trademark versus patents, which I just want to clarify. Botana Bites was her muffin shop name, right? Legally. The look of Botana Bites is what would be trademarked. So it is.
Well, I think the name, like the actual term, or I guess that'd be a patent. I guess that's a whole other thing.
There's like so many different things because I think patent is for an idea.
Yes,
And
but
then-
isn't trademark for the name?
I think the name and the look. You know what? Let's Google it, team.
Yeah, let's Google it. I think it's for the name.
The name.
'Cause,
Oh,
like-
maybe because you created the name. Like.
Right. So then it means no one else can use it, like ever.
Oh, right. Yes.
I think that's why like people have that TM thing symbol.
Because they created the name.
Yeah, what trademark means. A trademark is a word, phrase, symbol, and or design that identifies and distinguishes the source of the goods of one party from those of others. Whoa. Okay, so it could be a word, a phrase, a symbol, and or design.
Okay, so all of the above.
Yeah.
So no one else can use that, which is a step, like Sasha said, a step further because right now I have the kits and pieces, but somebody else can have a kits and pieces. But if, no one else can have Nike probably, right?
Right, but they probably trademarked it to where like literally no one else could use it. And then a patent
it's
is for
copyrighted. Actually,
well,
That's
I found this
interesting.
article here that has the difference between trademark and patent and copyright. I'm going to share my screen really quick.
Yeah.
So trademark here, service mark. Some examples include brand names. Gosh.
Wow, dyslexic.
Slogans and logos. The term trademark is often used in a general sense to refer to both trademarks and service marks. Unlike patents and copyrights, trademarks do not expire after a set term of years. Oh, I didn't know that. Trademark rights come from actual use. Therefore, a trademark can last forever. And then patents are the idea, or like an invention. So, I mean, technically, like with the Botana Bites recipe, for example, and how unique it was with like gluten-free, paleo-friendly, all that stuff, I could have also patented the recipe so that no one else could have created a product that had the same ingredients. But because I don't think people will figure out how to make them, I didn't patent it. Copyright. And with patent too, like that means if someone else would create muffins that had the similar ingredients, I could like try to sue them because they like tried to copy me.
Right, exactly.
Which I'm not about, but some people might be. Copyright protects original work. So that's when it's like, I guess probably more of a service-based or artistic based.
I think it's intellectual.
Intellectual property. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah.
So yes, so those are just a few things which I feel like as a new business you might not need unless you think you have something outrageously out of this world and you're going to go full throttle, more than full time, you're going to get investors, then maybe you do have something there.
Or if you feel like your name is going to be this like trending new thing that no one else should be able to touch, then that's when you would probably trademark it.
So that's just an extra step on the same website, and I'm about to sneeze.
Bless you. She always sneezes like 2 to 3 times each time.
Anyway, the DBA is doing business as, meaning it's going to ask you, this is one of the things that it asks you, which you can ignore initially when you register your business, because it's basically, if you have a hub name, let's say Botanobites LLC, but she wants to open up a bakery and call it Little Bites. So she doesn't need to come up with she doesn't register Little Bites as a whole new business. She can register it as a doing business as she is Botanobites doing business as Little Bites, which is helpful when you start to have multiple things. So let's say she has a Botanobites herbal tincture that you like spices or something that she sells separately. That's not the muffins. So it's still part of Botanobites, but she's doing business as Botana Tinctures or something. It's not required unless you start to have little different types of services, I would say, or different like actual physical locations. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think also the branding could even be totally different. Like under a DBA, it could almost look like a whole different company, but legally it's filed under that same thing. I don't know what kind of legal trouble you might get into if you have a DBA under a name that someone else already registered. I don't think you'd be able to do that, but
like if Little Bites was already
taken. Yeah. But it's helpful if you wanted to have different lines within your same company, or if you are just a serial entrepreneur and you have other ideas that might fall under the same category, or you want to build on the clientele you already have for like your current business. So you want to advertise it to them, but just under a different whole name or business. So I feel like it's cool if you want to dive into other avenues within your business. And legally, you're still protected under all the same things under one business, versus if you were to do 2 separate LLCs, you'd have to have different liability insurance for both and
it's
different fees for both. Yeah. It's a whole separate thing. Yeah. So it's helpful. It covers everything.
I want to say the other end of that, which is where I used to work at the restaurant. They had 6 locations, but their main name was Moon. And all the restaurants were called Moon for branding purposes. So this is the other end where all the restaurants are the same. But legally, because I worked in the office, they all have different DBAs so that they can file things easily. And when something comes in, it'll be for this, for that, for this. Even though it's the outward public, it was all called Moon. There are good and bad things because, let's say, because it's all under Moon, if an employee works at multiple locations, for example, it still counts as one company. So they can still only work, for example, 40 hours to be a full-time employee, even though it's 2 different locations. If they would have had separate LLCs or corporations or whatever, I think they were still LLC. And that's funny because they're still a small business, but they have 6 locations. Isn't that? Right. I think it's like 8 locations now. But if they would have had separate ones, then that employee is technically working 2 jobs. But so that's the other end,
like
where
they would get separate W-2s and everything.
Yes. Yeah. So I actually think they still get separate. Actually, no. That's a good question. I don't know that far. I don't have 8 restaurants, but but I just wanted to point out the other end where you would have an outward same name, but internally for filing and all that, it was much easier to have different DBAs. So you're not like, which location is this?
Right.
And then the last thing is domain, which is something we do recommend for you to get, like meaning a website domain. As soon as you get your, well, not as soon, but like pretty close to when you register your business, get the website or a version of it. I don't know. That's not as like, you don't have to do it the same day or anything, but, or maybe you already have it too, but
Yeah, I think it's important.
yeah, because then, hello, you just registered this thing and
It doesn't exist.
it doesn't exist. Or it's like really complicated, you know, like it's not botanobites.com. It's like taste my botanobites. That sounds horrible.
Right.
Yeah. So the next thing I have on my list, at least, is wait. We need to. Please hold 1 second because I want to open my window, but my window happened to be on this page, and I didn't get to look through it. So there you go. Now it's back. Okay. So now I can post Sasha's little thing. But the next thing I have on my list is that you should talk to a lawyer, accountant, or mentor. Any thoughts about that? You have a mentor.
A mentor is key. I think that's like super, super important. I did not do a lawyer. I don't know. I did a mentor at different stages too. I mean, I feel like when I registered the business, I did it on my own because the state is typically super helpful in that process. Like you don't really need a mentor in that stage. But I think it helps tremendously if you aren't super clear on what your goal is or what your business plan might look like, or just kind of like where you should start, where you should like, I don't know. They just have a lot of connections and resources that you're not going to have. And yes, right. Google helps, but it helps to have an actual person that's familiar with the area and the clientele and the networks. So actually Ohio State has a lot of business mentors in different areas. They have like an actual hub for this and like a resource center where you can go and meet with someone and have an actual meeting with them. And they might even, I remember I had a meeting with one of them that had contacts for one of the grocery stores. So like he could help me get into the stores. So, I mean, in entrepreneurship, number one rule is always to just reach out to people. Like, never think that you know enough or know a lot. Like, there's always more to know and more to learn and more to try. So the more you reach out to people, the better. And I was always told in the beginning too, that in the community of entrepreneurs, they are the most open-minded and understanding and helpful people ever. And I guess like coming into it, I kind of thought like, oh, it's competition. Like, why are they going to want to help me? But it's not the case. I mean, I had people help me within my own industry, and you don't sense any sort of like competitive nature or feeling or this like, I don't know, they're just so helpful. I reached out to probably like 5 different mentors that own businesses of different types. One was a large company that's in all stores, and they make cookies that are like coconut based and gluten-free and all that stuff too. And it was like a friend of mine that knew the owner. So she connected me with her, and she helped me tremendously in getting like barcodes and SKUs and like giving me the insider tips on how to get your product into stores and what to look out for and think about, which a mentor in just Ohio wouldn't have really known because that was specific to my industry. So it's like, yes, mentors help, but even through that, you have to find other mentors within your industry to help you like even further. And then obviously like whenever I started Botanobites, I had a mentor, which was my boss at the time for the business I used to work for. And he really helped propel me into the direction of starting the business. And I think you always need that person to just check in with and make sure they help you organize your thoughts and organize your process and organize your goals so that you can actually execute everything effectively. Because I think too, in the beginning, you're like, should I start with business cards? Should I start with a website? Should I start with this? Should I start with an event? Like, should I reach out to family first? I mean, there's so many different routes you can take with entrepreneurship, and there's no wrong or right way to do it. So it's helpful just to have that point person. Even if you have a business partner, it's helpful to have another person giving you advice and kind of like helping you through that process. And then also reaching out within your industry. So a mentor can kind of just include anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I had advice from random people, and just even like one sentence they said, I was like, oh, I should try that. And I tried it and it was super successful. Like you have to be open-minded, and you have to just look for different people that can help you when it comes to mentorship.
And when we say mentor, it's not like you go up to them and you're like, will you be my mentor? Like you just ask questions.
Just like, hey, yeah. Or you're just like, I started this business. Do you have any tips for me? I mean, we could also, if you wanted to reach out to us through the Facebook group, we could help you with how to approach that kind of conversation, because I think that was a little like
Intimidating
anxiety for me. Yeah. I was like, why do they care about me, or how are they going to respond to my email? But literally they all responded. Yeah. None of them ignored me. I mean, they offered extra help. One of the businesses even like went to an accelerator program, and they had the PowerPoint slides from that program, and they were like, here, just take it. Like, I mean, I stuff I wouldn't have even asked for, you know what I mean? Like they willingly offered. And I thought that was really, really cool. And I remember this other business, they offered mentorship. Like they actually said that, where they were just like, if you want to meet once a week, once a month, once a year, we're open to whatever. We have a lot of resources and a lot of advice to give. And people are just really, really giving in the entrepreneur community. It's amazing. So definitely take advantage of that, because not all industries are like that.
Yeah. And I think even if you had like a business degree in school, and you've always wanted to start a business, it's especially if you had a business degree, you would know that it's worth. You need to have outside influence on your decisions, at least in another set of eyes, you know, to even listen to you or see what you're doing. But especially if you don't have a business background, this is not, you know, just like when you picked up crocheting. I mean, it's not like you just picked it up and you knew how to do it. You know, I feel like people disregard the fact that they're actually running a business, even if they're just doing it as a side hustle. And I guess Sasha and I are just not big fans of people half-assing things. So if you're gonna do it, at least understand the basics. And we're just talking about basics. Okay, this is not like, we don't know anything about corporations or having 50 employees or something. So this is just the basics. And we think having a mentor is a big one, or a lawyer or an accountant, if you're able to talk to them at least once, or if your mentor is an accountant for some reason, you know. Just because, and I've never talked to a lawyer, but I think I should if I want to grow my business. Yeah. But basically, the main thing is that to keep going, meaning you should talk to these people if you're not sure where to go next. If you think your business is pretty straightforward, like I am just doing this product or this service, and I registered my whatever, and I have my tax ID, okay, I'm good to go. But if you're like, do I need more licenses? Do I need business insurance? Just one conversation with a mentor or any of the other folks would give you clarity on that, even if it's a no, you know, or even if you have the answers written out, but you're like, is this correct? Right. But to move on to the next thing that you should consider, which is two of the things I just said, which is, do you need to get a permit and or any licenses? So Sasha was talking about vendor licenses for her because she had to sell at farmers markets, and I got a sales and use tax certificate, meaning
I got that too. Yeah.
Okay, she has it too. For me, it was because I was selling I'm selling product, but there's also to work with wholesalers, you either need a resell certificate or a sales and use certificate. So
I kind of feel like you might need that across the board. Right?
The sales and use, I thought so too, if you have a product. Oh, no. Yeah. Maybe a service too. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you do need it across the board. So yeah, that's something to include whenever you register for an LLC, probably, is just to make sure you do the sales and use tax.
And I would integrate, like, every time you get a new license or a new permit or whatever, like, remember, like, write down these dates or have a folder of your legal stuff for your business, because you don't, like, different things expire or need to be renewed at different dates, especially with like a permit. Let's say it was a permit that you had to display. I don't have one of those because I mean, I have the permit, but I don't display it because it's just me.
Right.
But those need to be renewed all the time. So which is
when I remember different. I needed like a food handler certificate.
Oh, yes.
Because I was baking. So there's little stuff like that where if you're having a food business, you have to make sure you have that on hand. And that's just, again, a quick website read and test. I mean, it's not hard.
So these are just things that if you're not sure, I would just talk to someone or us, and we'll help you look it up if you're not sure. But on the same note is business insurance, which is, I just recommend the general one. But again, I feel like it's just to protect you. This is kind of like, to me, I think it's like the DBA and trademark and whatever. Like it is good to have, but you don't need it like that first day that you register.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the DBA, I don't even think I filled that out.
I don't have a DBA.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just left it blank. So you don't have to. And you can do that later on too if you decide you want to do one.
And if you do decide to do it, I think the general blanket one is fine. Like, unless you have something specific that you talk to your lawyer about that you think you need. So that was kind of like the first group of just register your thing. Register your business, please. I think the next biggest thing is bank accounts.
Yes, that's a great one. I'm glad you included that. I'm writing that down.
So,
because I didn't do that until later on.
Which is one of the things we both were like, dang, we should have done that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Which even Sasha had a credit card before me, a business credit card before me, and I literally just got mine like last year. Like, that's crazy.
Woo-hoo.
But it should be something that we get like right at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's just easier to track. So basically we're recommending to get a business debit account and a business, I think you should just get both, a business credit account if possible.
Yeah.
Because that way, it's just to, your business expenses should be tracked separately so that at the end of the year when you do your taxes, it doesn't just mesh with, it's easy to keep track of, is the main thing. Number 2, though, is you can build credit if you have a credit card, which is important if you're trying to, I mean, it's like, personally, it's important to have credit if you're going to go buy a house or something. So the same thing for businesses.
Well, and I think, I mean, in whatever checklist, we're going to make a checklist and make it available through our private Facebook group, which is Level Up with Sasha and my cat. And we will give that to whoever requests it once they join. But we'll include all of these as kind of just steps in like priority order, because whenever we registered our LLC, we found all the different Google resources and things that we needed to know what to do, but we also missed some things that we wanted to consider or should have considered back then, which we'll continue talking about, but we're going to provide that for you guys just so it's a little clearer for you. But I feel like making a bank account kind of goes under the topic of just managing your finances, because aside from that, you also want to make sure you have spreadsheets that are like clearly documenting like your expenses, your income, like all the things that go into owning a business. Did you just laugh?
I showed track expenses because you were talking about the next topic. I mean, it's the same topic. Sorry.
Perfect.
It's not the next topic.
Yes.
Continue.
Perfect. That was that. I just wanted to include, I think, as a topic of like managing finances, creating a bank account and then like documenting everything.
So after you create the bank account, that's actually one step forward already. And you know, along the same lines, I would create a business email, even if it's, you know, botanabites at Gmail or the kits and pieces at Gmail. Just to then, because then you get all these emails that go with your your legal registration and your financial registration, and then you're just like, oh my gosh, so many emails. At least you can keep track of that separately. But the tracking of expenses is something that I am trying to be better at. Actually, the expenses is fine. Is tracking. I'd love you to talk about QuickBooks and P&L statements. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So actually my mentor, Orion, he's the one that showed me or highlighted the importance of a P&L, which is a profit and loss statement. They are super important because that's how you're able to track your progress as a business owner. And you're also able to separate your finances from your personal finances. And it's necessary. You need profit and loss statements. And those are typically done every month. You could do them every quarter as well, but typically every month just to stay on top of everything. And you can kind of just see like how much you spent that much, how much you brought in, and set goals and try to reduce spending, increase profit, all the stuff. Also know a lot about profit margin. That's like, you need to know that. But yeah, so profit and loss statements are great, and you could create your own. What I did in the beginning was do spreadsheet. So I had one spreadsheet with like income, and then I had another spreadsheet that was for expenses, and then I had each month on that same spreadsheet so that it was just clear. But then I would basically create my profit and loss statement manually. So I would break it all into categories of like what I spent on supplies or ingredients or vendor fees or transportation costs or food costs. You can basically tax everything when you own a business. So it's important to keep track of what you're spending your money on when you're doing anything related to your business. So if you're working from home to produce your product or you're driving somewhere to deliver it, everything is included. So that's why it's also important to track everything really intensely. It's easier to do that if you have your own bank account for your business. And it also looks better for taxes. Like once you file your taxes, everything's linked to that bank account. So it doesn't look like you were trying to claim personal stuff for your business. When you
that end of it too. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that they'll come looking for you, but like you just want to make sure.
With your, $300 that you sold your first year.
So, and we could do a whole other show on taxes, which you probably should, because entrepreneurship and taxes, it's like a whole other thing that I didn't even know about. But basically you just want to like take advantage of the system as an entrepreneur filing your taxes. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so profit and loss statements are important for that reason. QuickBooks is probably the most commonly used way of tracking your spending and your income and everything else. And it basically links up to your bank account. So you can connect your bank account directly into QuickBooks, and you can set the categories you want it to pull from. So for example, if it sees any purchases from Amazon, you can say that that's all going to be under supplies. Or if it sees that you paid for your car insurance, you can actually have a category that's just for car insurance. So any fee that goes through your bank account will end up being fed into QuickBooks, and QuickBooks automatically categorizes it. And if it doesn't know what category to put it into, it will flag it, and you can go in and manually change that category. So it's super easy to use, very straightforward, makes your life a lot easier. And then at the end of the month, you can just hit a button, create profit and loss statement, and you got it. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I've heard so many people say like, I wish I would have started it before, or like, I wish I would have started my business with QuickBooks. Mostly because people don't like to transfer everything over. Like then you have to flag and categorize all the transactions from months ago with QuickBooks. But if you've been keeping your own profit and loss statements, you don't really have to do that. But it's definitely ideal to just start it early on. I think it's only like $10 a month. Like it's really not that big of a deal, and it saves you a whole huge headache. And I know on that note, there's another thing in terms of like tracking inventory that people use called Fishbowl. I have not used it, but I've heard really good things about it as well. And that's how you can just transfer all your stuff into Fishbowl, and it categorizes everything for you. And it just has a clear thing of like what's missing, what's low. Like you can set, markers. I don't know the specifics of it, but that's just another one.
So I think especially, that was amazing, Sasha. Also, I've been trying to get on QuickBooks, and I've had it literally on my to-do list, scheduled date with Sasha to go over QuickBooks, literally probably since like November. And I mean, luckily I have like another spreadsheet that I've been using every year, but I think Sasha's totally right. Like if you can just start QuickBooks from the beginning, even if you had 5 sales this year, but then the next year when you have 80 sales, wow, I wish businesses would work like that. But if next year you have 80 sales, then you don't have to worry about it. And you have the time now, because you're just starting it, to categorize those things. And maybe like, the first like day, you don't know what categories yet, but let's say in 6 months, you're kind of like, okay, this is the type of stuff I'm selling. This is what I'm spending my money on. So now you can kind of have like a clear idea of what the categories are, but definitely worth it, or definitely worth it to at least have some sort of tracking, even if it's like, I don't know. Yeah, if you Google something and you're like, oh, that sounds like an interesting app or whatever it is. Even some people use like Mint. I know it's more of a personal like app, but if you categorize
you can
it and
use it for business.
Yeah. So also nowadays on nowadays. I sound so old. On Etsy, they also have QuickBooks and TurboTax, and on Squarespace, you can. I don't know if you can do it directly on there or if you need to export it, but there's also some sort of link for that. So luckily, a lot of your platforms will have links to that because that's the most annoying part. So if you just set it up right in the beginning, you're good to go. I'm a little old school, and to me, I just don't have that many. I can still track my income and expenses because it's not like a crazy flow.
Right.
I would say last year was probably the craziest, which naturally over time it will get crazier, which is why we both recommend the QuickBooks or organizing it early. But then my Excel that I have is now starting to get a little bit crazy.
I think it's important in the beginning though too, because I feel like in the beginning you typically will order a lot of supplies just to do like a lot of stuff in bulk and have it on stock. But then months later, you'll get more profit and stuff like that against your cost because your cost was like 3 months ago, but it's covering the whole year or whatever. And I think QuickBooks does a good job at showing that and doing like the yearly profit and loss statement, for example. And then the other thing too, what was I going to say about that? Oh, that when I was doing QuickBooks, or like what made it mostly useful is I was doing a lot of events. So with events come like vendor fees or different insurance policies or the gas, the food, the transportation costs. Or if you're delivering to stores, you're like running back and forth. So it helps a lot with breaking up those categories because I was able to see how much a month I was spending on events or spending on vendor fees. And then did I get my money's worth back? Like, did I make enough profit that month to cover it? So it helps depending on kind of what you're doing. I know that's all different now because of the pandemic, but QuickBooks is definitely a key thing to do.
Right. And now they've made it so easy. Like I remember when I was working at the restaurant, QuickBooks, the apps weren't like all over the place like it is right now. And the accounting lady that was doing QuickBooks had like a freaking prehistoric version of QuickBooks. I was like, I haven't even seen a screen that looks like this in the longest time.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like crazy. It was complicated, I will say. Now, though, they've made it so easy.
Yeah.
So, and then on the same note of like the P&Ls or like just keeping up with that monthly, I would suggest like as soon as you register your business, just have like at the minimum, I mean, everyone works different ways, but I would just like put a reminder once a month of like, just check on your business expenses or credit card accounts or whatever things you need to turn in for your taxes and P&Ls or whatever. Just even if it's not much that you have to do, at least it's on your mind and you don't just leave your account, going down to a low number because you didn't make a lot of sales, but you spent a lot. Like, just so you just always keep an eye on it because it is not you. It is a business. So it does need to be maintained.
It's important to set a reminder at the end of every month to just make sure that you do your profit and loss statement, because either way you should also be checking in to your business once a month to see what your profit is and what your spending is and make goals. So it helps a lot with managing that aspect of your business, which is super important if you want growth and like success from it.
Yes, because in the long run then it'll be less stressful. I know that sounds weird, because you're going to be doing more and learning more. But if you don't just do it in the beginning, now you're like scrambling and it's horrible. Annoying.
It's horrible.
So to me, we only have a couple more topics left, but taxes, just on the short form. And I know Sasha mentioned that there are some ways to do these things, but basically like to get the most out of it as possible. But for me, it's a blanket statement on my side. I'm not going to speak for Sasha, but the first year especially, and I would say maybe in the first couple of years that you have a business, are probably the most lenient, meaning like they know you're spending a lot more than you're making. And if you come off as making a profit in the first year, kudos to you. But most likely, even up to probably the first 5 years, it's not going to look pretty. And since it's not going to look pretty, the uglier it looks, the better for you.
Yes, that is true. I mean, and you'll see like if it's better to itemize deductions versus just doing a standard deduction and stuff like that. I use TurboTax for taxes, so I'm able to kind of see both and see what works best. But I feel like it ends up just being standard deduction. I mean, you can itemize everything and you're able to do that if you have QuickBooks because you'll have everything listed there, like already. When it comes to gas expenses, transportation, all that shit. But I think I also want to mention too, like there's quarterly taxes and yearly taxes. So obviously yearly taxes, everyone has to do, but I think it differs per state if you have to do quarterly taxes, and you should check with your state on that. I know for me in Florida, I think it was just like 0 every time. Like it was, I don't know, it was weird. And then in Ohio, I think they don't have the same laws.
So for me,
I definitely haven't filed them, so I don't think it's required.
Well, it's interesting because in Tennessee, you have to do it every month, but I've been putting 0 because at the end of the year, so basically it's not, oh, if you pay it now, then you don't have to pay it later. Well, sorry. It's if you pay it now, then it'll take it off of what you have to pay at the end of the year. But it's the same amount. Like whether you just file annually or file quarterly, it's just recommended to file quarterly unless because then you pay less at the end of the year. It's less of a chunk. But sometimes they require you to file quarterly or monthly or whatever, but you can just put 0 if you didn't make some kind of crazy money, and then just file it at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's usually what people do. I think they just put zeros.
Yeah. Because it's just we're not at the point of keeping track of that kind of money. And somebody let us know if this is bad advice, but we've been doing this for a few years and it's been fine. And it's good to file a loss. Like your goal is to show that you had a loss for your business because then you don't owe taxes. So even as a small business owner, you don't want to pay taxes for something you're not like using as your main job. Right, exactly. And even if you you especially want to, if you're working out of your home, you know, like your home is also your office. So that can count as an expense if you're paying rent for this home, your phone bill, your internet bill. If you're using that to do business, which I hope you are, then you can file it under that. Even if you have to buy a new computer because of your business, that can go under an expense. So the more expenses you have, the better it looks in terms of how like your taxes would probably go down. So you could even like throw your car in there. Like if you used your car to deliver your products and stuff, like that's technically used for business. So oh yes, I forgot about my app. Hello. The MileIQ app tracks your driving, like if you have to drive to deliver or drive to even to the post office to drop something off. Anytime you have to drive for a work-related thing, you can turn on your app and MileIQ will track it, and that way at the end of the year, you're just like, oh, these are my travel expenses or whatever here, my travel log. Yeah, anything like Sasha said, and even like paying for postage is like counts as that. So, and then on the other note, I want to say that I do go to an accountant. So if anyone is wondering between TurboTax and accountant, we both have knowledge on those things. Yeah, and I did want to mention too, QuickBooks is owned by Intuit, which is also who owns TurboTax. So they're also directly connected, which is also convenient if you use TurboTax like I do. I've always used TurboTax under many circumstances. And then when I had the business, I also just used it. They're pretty straightforward with all the questions they ask you and like allowing you to make sure you enter your information and stuff. And one year, I was skeptical of what TurboTax was telling me. So I went to H&R Block just to get a second opinion and see what they would say. And by the end of like the whole conversation with them, sitting in the office and everything, the amount they gave me as my money that I would get back was the exact number that TurboTax gave me. Interesting. So I was like, I'm going to go with TurboTax. So I will say that. And yeah, I think when you own a business, you have to file a Schedule C is what it's called. And I think you can still do like a 1040 or whatever, but I think you have to have that extra Schedule C thing, which might be an extra fee. I'm pretty sure it is even on TurboTax. But that's kind of where you can show a loss or profit for your business, and then they decide what. I've never had to do it.
Yeah, so it's a Schedule C, but again, TurboTax walks you through it, so it's not like you'll miss out on that. Like you'll know. But yeah.
I used to do TurboTax like before the business, and I'm gonna give my reasoning for going to someone because I at least for me I like going at least for your first year. I just ended up going because the lady already knows my business and she just does everything. But I feel like this year I especially want to go because last year I spent so much and plus the pandemic. To me, like the accountant will always or your tax person will always know what's updated, like what you can file for that's new.
Mm-hmm.
And then like she'll always ask me these extra questions that she's considering like maybe putting in some way where it would benefit me that maybe I wouldn't have thought of. But I think once let's say the pandemic didn't happen, maybe like this year I would have done it on my own. So
yeah, and I think it depends if you have like assets and other things that are like a lot, then obviously do that. I think the other advantage of TurboTax is it tells you your refund as you go through.
mm-hmm.
So for example, when I was doing my business side of things, I was putting in all the deductions and I was itemizing everything initially. So I was putting how much I spent on my car, my home office, gas,
Mm-hmm.
different things, whatever. And then it showed me what my refund was, but I was able to then go back and just do the standard deduction and see what it would give me. And it was a better option. So I think that's
Gotcha.
also kind of cool because you can kind of make the decision of what's best for you, which I'm sure accountants do that too, but I don't know if they like, maybe for them, they just have one set way of doing things and you're not aware of it. So they just go with that method. And then you're like, oh, but wait, I could have gotten this much back. So there's a little bit more of an empowering element when you use TurboTax because
very
of that, like,
Sasha.
which is very Sasha. So
it just depends. Like if you're like, I'm super busy and I already have a tax person, and you're like, this is just easier. I'll pay my little fee and they just do it. Or you're like, you know what? I have the time. I'm self-sufficient. Sasha. I'll do it. So either way, TurboTax is really easy to use. It's just more about, are you aware? Did you keep track of your expenses kind of thing? So I think the last thing I wanted to really say was the annual report, which is the thing Sasha and I were talking about that apparently you don't need to do in Ohio after you register your business. So if anyone is looking for that life of not filing it, but I wanted to share my screen, or do I need to share it, or can I?
It's annual renewal. Like I guess to renew your business, you have to file this thing.
So yes. Sorry, right here. So these are the states. We'll put this in the link of states that don't. I don't know if Sasha can see this.
I can't.
Oh, it's just a link of what states don't require an annual report. And I just want to note. So an annual report is literally the one thing I think people see in a year. Then they get an email that's like, your annual report is due. And they're like, because I was like that. And then, and you're like, what are you talking about? An annual report? I'm just a small business. And then you think like, because you hear about financial reports in big corporations and that they're like these lengthy documents that report their finances. And it's not that. It's literally a 5-minute thing that just renews, like Sasha said, renews your business. Meaning, so I'm just going to show this quick thing where when you register your business, it shows, this is the Florida one, it shows if your status is active or inactive. And as you can see, because Sasha moved, Botana Bites in Florida is now inactive because she didn't renew it. But if you wanted to continue to stay active, you just have to renew it. It is a fee, and I will say the fee varies by state, so definitely keep an eye on that so you're not like, oh my gosh, it's been a year, I need to now drop whatever hundreds of dollars, like Tennessee is $300, Florida was $180 or something. But this is required to when you are filing your taxes, to show that your business has been renewed, but also to show an expense, a big expense. So I definitely recommend keeping that in mind. It takes 5 minutes but takes
Yeah.
a big chunk out of your wallet. But just make sure that your state requires it. And I just wanted to literally point that out, because then otherwise, why did you register your business in the first place and not do an annual report, and now your business is expired?
Right.
So the last things to consider, I know Sasha has a couple things there.
In terms of like other stuff to look into.
So yes, once you register your so our main things were registering your business, starting your bank account, and for me, also doing your annual report every year. Beyond that, Sasha has a few thoughts of things to keep in mind
Right. Yeah.
as you keep going, because sometimes you're like, oh, I'm ready to start my business. And then months later, like, oh man, I should have done this. So
Yeah. So tracking your finances falls like number one under that. So QuickBooks for sure. Or just some way of tracking everything and doing profit and loss statements every month. Having a mentor is under that as well, because you're going to be better off if you have 1 or 5 or 10. And I guess another one that I didn't really think about too much whenever I started the LLC was looking into kind of just how you're going to make your business become alive. I mean, you think just because you started it and you registered it as an LLC and you have stuff to sell, it's already done. But you should also look into shipping, for example. Like if you need to ship your product, you need to look into the best option for shipping and make sure that cost is like clear cut and you really research what the best option is for that. Look into MailChimp, or like how you're going to potentially start a newsletter so that you can get people to come into your business or your product or whatever you're selling or doing, and make sure they come back, and you have some sort of like way of keeping up with them and communication and making sure they know when like new products come out or new updates for your business come out or anything like that. And that can also connect to your website. So obviously make sure you have a website, get on Squarespace or something that's super easy in order to just make one and have it out there. It's better to have one than not. And no, a Facebook page does not count. There are so many businesses that only have a Facebook page, and it pisses me off.
it's 2021, people.
Yeah, no one wants to go to Facebook to look at your website. They want to go to your website and see your stuff on its own.
Right. So social media, I would want to add. It's funny because in 2015 I wouldn't add social media, but now I'm like, if you don't have social media,
you don't exist.
You don't exist. You
Yeah.
don't exist.
And it's not like you're not going to get a bunch of sales from social media. You're not going to get a bunch of clients and all that stuff. It's just so people have a reference point and they can see the deeper side of the business.
It's
they
your
can learn
resume.
more about you as the owner. It's your resume. They can learn more about you, maybe your clientele, maybe your community, and kind of just what you represent as a business owner and as a business. So it's important to also tie those two together in your social media handles and like the way you're portrayed in the public. But on your website, that's just your product and services. That's
Right.
like more straightforward. So those are just a few things to look into. I don't know if I missed anything that I mentioned earlier, but
I think social media was the big one. And then just I feel like knowing your market, meaning like, I would say especially in 2021, because I feel like you can't just get away with like, oh, now I bake, or now I make this and that. Like, now I offer consulting services. Like, everyone is offering something now. So the basics, I feel like the standard is set higher. Like, because like you need social media, you need handles, you need to be present. Sorry, you need a website. You need to be present. Because the game is just stronger now. Like, you're still gonna probably make your sales from Etsy and blah blah blah, but I mean, to me, I feel like when you had an Etsy in 2015 or 2016, whatever, it was like no one had it. So your results come up all the time. But now everyone is doing something probably similar to you, or especially, at least Etsy is a third party that promotes listings for you. If you have your own website, if no one's looking at it, you don't exist. So what's the point of doing this, you know?
And the pro of that is that more people are using Etsy. Like, you have more customers on there. So the potential for getting more sales is higher, but you have to make sure that you are standing out in some way.
Or even if you want to be like a YouTube personality, not that we're trying to be YouTube personalities, but I mean, a lot of people have like web series and all of that. So
yeah,
yes, YouTube is helping you, but if we can't find you anywhere else, if you've never worked with anyone, if you have no website, or even your handle is like your social media handle is empty, it's just
or weird, like it has underscores in it and like
right, it's not professional. It's just these little things. People have such short attention spans that they turn away so quickly. So I guess just looking ahead, like she said, MailChimp and shipping or any other of day-to-day services that day-to-day operations that you run into, just take the time to make it better from the beginning, because it'll save you time in the future.
Yeah.
That was it, T. Wow, that was a full episode. We didn't even get to talk about our lives before.
I know. And again, if you go to the Facebook group, the private group, there's like a couple questions you have to answer, and that's it, because it's exclusive. But we will offer help and mentorship, and any sort of questions you have, we will be glad to answer. And then we'll also include a little short list of everything we talked about during this call, just so you kind of have a better idea of what to look into whenever you're starting your business, or even if you're just taking it from Etsy to the real world or whatever it is.
Yeah, we're super happy with this episode. I think this was an overdue episode, because I feel like we have done all of this stuff. It's funny that we literally talked about our entire legal side of what we do, or legal side, whatever, but the behind the scenes boring part of what we do, we like shoved it in one episode. I was like, oh my god, there's so much more. But
I was thinking that too. And we kind of touched on like knowing your niche, but we'll talk about that in a future episode as well, because that's obviously super important with like propelling your business.
Actually, that is our next episode. I
thought it was, we're not.
Oh, okay. Did we change? Oh no, we didn't. No, we have a separate surprise episode next week. Sorry. But yes, in a couple weeks we'll be talking about,
I think it's after that one, yeah,
picking an idea. So
subscribe so that you can get notified whenever we are doing that episode, or next week when we do our special episode. And then obviously check out the Facebook group and the Instagram if you want to be part of our community.
Yay. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. Again, we are Sasha and the Cat. We're here for you, trying to build a community of awesome entrepreneurs, side hustlers, main hustlers, and we're just chilling here, so we'd love for you to work with us too. But feel free to ask any questions, even if you're just watching this after, or follow us on Sasha and the Cat, or join our Facebook group, which is linked on our YouTube. But yes, we will catch you all next week.